Yuji Kazami is a transfer student who has just been admitted into Mihama Academy. He wants to live an ordinary high school life, but this dream of his may not come true anytime soon, as Mihama Academy is quite the opposite. Consisting of only the principal and 5 other students, all of whom are girls, Yuji becomes acquainted with each of them, discovering more about their personalities as socialization is inevitable. Slowly, he begins to learn about the truth behind the small group of students occupying the academy. They each have their own share of traumatic experiences which are tucked away from the world. Yuji Kazami wasn't your average high school transfer student unless your average student packed military-grade light Yagami. When he got to the city, he was interrogated by the police because after they ran his name through the databases, the Ministry of Defenses asked about his arrival. After Yuji Kazami was released from police custody and picked up by a young woman who was like an old friend to him, they arrived at the academy, which looked like an isolated and fortified like Paradise Island. The young woman then introduced herself as Chizuru Tachibana, the school's principal and part-time enabler of weirdness. She welcomed him like he was just another lost soul in need of therapy and a bulletproof dorm. She explained that Mihama Academy was a special school for students who had enough emotional baggage to charge overweight luggage fees at the airport. Yuji arrived at the school, immediately noticing how deserted it looked. Curious, he asked Chizuru why the place was so empty. She replied that only 6 students, including him, were enrolled. Talk about exclusive. When Yuji questioned if this was really an ordinary school, especially with a suspicious camera outside, Chizuru shrugged and said yes. Next, Chizuru showed Yuji his new home, the student dormitory. Suddenly, a girl in a maid uniform appeared behind him, asking if he was a transferred student or a prowler. Yuji greeted her and she introduced herself as Sachi, a first-year student and class representative. When Yuji asked why she wore a maid outfit, she explained it was part of her job as the class representative to help teachers and running errands. So basically, she's a maid with student ID.
雑用をお願いされるのですが、なんだかメイドさんみたいだね。
Sachi then showed Yuji the caretaker room where he would serve as the dormitory leader. Who else was going to keep this 6-student circus in check? The next morning, Yuji woke up early, applied eye drops, and chugged a drink like Bear Pong Pro. He jogged around campus, remembering his master's advice: run fast, hit hard, and read books. After a shower and a cereal breakfast, Yuji ran into a red-haired girl, Amane, who was busy bullying a shy girl named Makina by force brushing her hair like a mother. Amane introduced herself and forced Makina to shake Yuji's hand for snacks, of course, because nothing says friendship like bribery. Inside a classroom, Yuji met Michiru Matsushima, who was caught acting but insisted she wasn't. She asked if Yuji had a sense of humor. He admitted he didn't. Michiru then insisted he call her by her first name, took some Ramune candy, and hilariously defended her non-bleached blonde hair. She claimed tsundere girls have a curse and have to wear blonde pigtailed hair or suffer the consequences. When a gust of wind revealed her underwear, Yuji, a man of focus, missed it entirely. Michiru rejected Yuji's handshake offer, but secretly hoped he'd be confused. Later, Sachi, Amane, and Makina joined, teasing Michiru over her Michiru-sama title. Chizuru arrived, announcing class start, but one student, Yumiko Sakaki, was missing. After class, Sachi gave Yuji a tour, but unexpectedly left when he mentioned Yumiko. Yuji found Yumiko in a classroom and stopped her just as she pulled a knife. Safe to say, not your average hello. She confirmed her identity and reluctantly accepted Yuji's presence. Back at the dorm, Yuji found Amane changing in his room. She was bare-skinned without a hint of embarrassment, and as her melons jiggled, he joked about women on poles but learned she just found her own room too inconvenient. Amane then claimed to be Yuji's new sister and vowed to cook dinner. Amane surprised Yuji by picking his lock, revealing her skills and a dark past involving a bus accident that killed classmates. Meanwhile, other girls showed their quirks, a mysterious call from JB and Yuji opening a weapons case. Yumiko tried to stab Yuji from behind, just normal classmate bonding things. Unfortunately for her and fortunately for Yuji's vital organs, he dodged it with ease. When she asked how he dodged her attack, he teased her about moving in slow-mo like she was buffering in real real life. He pointed out the whole trying to murder a classmate thing, but Yumiko insisted she was innocent since technically she didn't draw blood. With the logic of a discount lawyer, she sheathed her knife and walked off, warning him to remember this. In class, Amane tried to comfort Yuji about his rocky start with Yumiko, blaming him for moving too fast. Meanwhile, under the desk, Yuji began feeling like someone was playing footsie with him using actual feet. He suspected Amane, but when Sachi checked, Amane's shoes were back on like nothing happened. Later, on a blazing hot day, Yuji spotted Makina sleeping under a tree with a half-eaten apple nearby, snow white. "Is that you?" He checked her pulse, and after a while, she woke up and strolled to the pond to feed the fish. There, she played with a crawfish. Yuji, who had more stealth than Batman, snuck up behind her and startled her into almost falling in. He saved her like a true anime protagonist, and when asked why she'd been avoiding him, she nervously admitted she was too shy to call him by name, so instead, she dubbed him Oni-chan. They bonded over crustaceans as Yuji explained how crawfish can change color depending on what they eat, just like women and mood swings. She caught one and decided to keep it as a pet and science experiment. Before running home, she gave Yuji an apple as thanks. Meanwhile, Yumiko was watching from the rooftop like a dramatic Shakespearean villain. In a flashback, she had protested Yuji's admission to the school, referring to it as a girls' school. Chizuru, the ever-calm principal, assured her that Yuji wasn't a threat. Naturally, Yumiko didn't buy it and turned to the internet to research him on a very trustworthy-sounding site called Set a Thief to Catch a Thief. Based on her findings, she concluded Yuji wasn't normal, which was actually fair. The next day, Yumiko launched Attempted Murder 2, Stabbing Dance-Off. He dodged like he was auditioning for The Matrix. Her spree of attacks ended when she tripped and fell, flashing her underwear and her dignity. Michiru nearly laughed but quickly stopped when Yumiko gave her a look that said, "You laugh, you die." Meanwhile, the others pretended not to notice the chaos. In Chizuru's office, Yuji got the full backstory on Yumiko, why she treated the academy like Walmaria, and Yuji was the colossal titan. Chizuru wanted him to handle the situation himself, like a boss handing you a fire and saying, "You're the extinguisher now." Later, while pondering how to fit into school life, Yuji bought drinks from a vending machine with Makina and told her a story to cool off. Then, the plot thickened when a mysterious blonde woman appeared at the school gates. She waved and sent a peck through Bluetooth and called Yuji by name. Her name was Julia Bardera, aka JB, Yuji's boss and also his legal guardian, but not in a warm, maternal way. She was more like a government-funded babysitter with trust issues. She reminded him that if he slipped up, he might accidentally die. You know, casual workplace advice. Back in class, the girls grilled Yuji about JB. He explained she was his boss in his part-time job, which sounded more like a covert ops gig than flipping burgers, where he disposed of garbage. Amane asked if JB was his girlfriend. Yuji responded with ice in his veins, and the emotional subtlety of a brick told her that's a stupid question. He also revealed that he used to live with an older woman, and after she died, JB took him in and started working him like a dog. Later that evening at the dorms, Yumiko popped out again like a knife-wielding jack-in-the-box and tried one more sneak attack. This time, Yuji caught her arm, returned the knife like a gentleman, and declared he wasn't her enemy. They had a moment where knives were lowered, names were exchanged, and the war formally downgraded to a Cold War. They agreed to call each other by surnames. In a flashback, Yumiko remembered an old woman giving her apples, the unofficial mascot of this episode, and started to see the girls as her friends. She quietly put her knife away. During the credits, each girl had a quirky arrival at the academy. Amane arrived like a biker gang queen, Michiru made her tsundere entrance, Makina popped out of a truck, and Sachi dramatically arrived on a bicycle, demanding people kneel and lick her shoes. Friendship bloomed like a chaotic, hilarious anime flower. Then came Yuji, the final student, and the chaos was complete. Yuji was jogging back to the dorm when he spotted Amane breaking into his room like a budget cat burglar with a crush. She picked the lock with like professional thief with a veteran's worth of experience. She snuck in and tried to surprise him for a wake-up lips-to-lips massage. But the bed was empty. He was still outside, hiding behind a wall like some covert love spy. Amane, ever determined and apparently on a romantic mission, began sniffing his shirt, reaching the ultimate pervy stage. Then she hopped onto his bed, buried her face in his pillow, and, let's just say, she was getting very personal with Yuji's scent. Her solo moment was interrupted when Yuji casually strolled in for a drink. Amane froze mid-act like a deer in headlights if the deer had a massive crush and poor boundaries. Later, the trio, Yuji, Amane, and Makina, were running late for class. Makina blamed Amane's bathroom marathon for the delay. She also declared her hatred for running, which prompted Yuji to teach her a fun running song. Naturally, that fun song turned into a musical roast of Amane's earlier activities, leaving her wishing teleportation was a real thing. Meanwhile, Sachi compiled a drink order with surgical precision: green tea for Amane, milk tea for Michiru, lemon tea without sugar for Yumiko, fancy mineral water for Yuji, and the most delicious milk for Makina. As Sachi headed off, Amane and Michiru noticed Makina behaving suspiciously Yuji-like pompous speech, cocky attitude. Apparently, she'd downloaded the Yuji 2.0 software update. Yumiko informed the girls they had class soon, prompting Amane to warn Yuji. Then, in a plot-thickening moment, Yumiko told Yuji that Amane had suffered from a mental illness following a traffic accident. And just like that, things got heavier than a double-decker bento box. Later, while Yuji was enjoying some peaceful reading, he heard what he thought was someone getting frisky in the bushes. He investigated, and no, it wasn't a scandalous rendezvous. It was Michiru locked in a WWE match against a cat that had hijacked her pouch. She wanted help returning the feline, and Yuji, ever the problem solver, noted cats hate citrus. But Michiru used grape-scented shampoo, which inspired his next plan, Operation Cat Battle of the Bulge. He had her wave her pigtails, codename Alpha and Bravo, at the cat. When that failed, he added her cowlick Charlie to the mission. Despite her valiant hair flailing, the cat jumped on her head instead of fleeing. Mission failed, but later, the cat sensed something and bolted. Michiru called it Kitty Meow and thanked Yuji with her serious voice. He noted she didn't look thankful, but she insisted she was happy. Her poker face said otherwise. Meanwhile, Sachi misunderstood Yuji's autopilot agreement from earlier and began measuring him for a strap because she was crafting a sparkly pink shark pouch for him. A few minutes ago, Yuji had jokingly agreed to one when Michiru teased him. Now he was living with the consequences of sarcasm, taken literally. He frantically asked Sachi to cancel the project. She said she was halfway done but could switch it to a bush dog pouch instead. Yuji regretted not picking a golden lion tamarin and had a mini breakdown, complete with wall banging and yelling. Sachi returned with the glittery bush dog pouch just in time for Michiru to mysteriously snatch it with green eyes. She showed it to Makina, who initially hated it until she saw it sparkle. Makina fell in love instantly.
ほらこれキラキラついてるのよ。キラキラなのよさ。
Yuji insisted Sachi give it to her. Turns out, the pouch had a built-in barking sound. Makina squealed with delight and ran off. Yuji, grateful, thanked Michiru for saving him, though she had no clue what he was talking about. Also, her eyes were back to blue. Suspicious. During baseball, Amane injured her ankle and Yuji carried her to the nurse's office, which, like an ordinary school, had no nurse. He treated her himself. She asked why he was so cold to her. As he tried to leave, she clung to him, pleading not to be left alone. Then came the big reveal. She loved him, confessed it, and asked him to be her boyfriend. Yuji, ever a man of focus, declined and asked she really enjoyed teasing. A little to be upset, but ever determined, she quickly changed tactics like Shikamaru and asked if she could be his big sister instead. He still said no, but after seeing her self-confidence crumble, he finally gave in. She patted his head like she'd won the world's weirdest lottery. At lunchtime, Amane and Makina brought an oversized bento and insisted Yuji join. Amane lovingly fed him bites, and even Makina jumped in to offer a spoonful. As Yuji ate, he reflected on his life trying to live alone after his master, Asako, passed away. He wondered if an ordinary life like this, surrounded by oddball girls and lunchboxes the size of suitcases, might actually be okay. While Yuji was out for his usual morning jog routine, he spotted Michiru standing at a cliff, staring at the ocean like she was in a shampoo commercial. When he asked what she was doing, she pretended to be deep and philosophical, but the truth clawed its way out, literally. The campus cat, Kitty Meow, showed up. Yuji guessed its name was Rommel, which offended Michiru enough to yell the correction, "It's Kitty Meow, you uncultured swine." Yuji sat next to her, where she shared that while the ocean was beautiful, the sky was terrifying. She even said it felt like being trapped in a box, kind of like a very sad cat. She admitted she never looked at the sky at night because it made her feel lonely. Yuji joked that she must be a werewolf or Dracula, to which Michiru replied that being a vampire sounded fine as long as she got shot with a silver bullet. Someone clearly didn't get the Twilight memo. In a flashback, as she fed Kitty Meow cat snacks, she randomly asked Yuji what happens when people die. Yuji responded that death was like falling asleep and never waking up, basically the worst nap ever. She made him promise to bury her at that cliff when she died. Back in the dorms, Yuji caught Michiru guzzling a sour lemon juice pouch like it was an energy drink. She claimed vitamin C makes you smarter. Yuji asked what lab she got that from, probably the same one that says sardines cure heartbreak. When he sighed in disappointment, she stormed off like a citrus-fueled anime tsundere, claiming she'd outsmart him one day. Later, Makina and Sachi watched an anime called Tuna Fish Man, which sounded fishy from the title alone. Makina screamed Tuna Man, while Sachi countered with Shark Man. Meanwhile, Yuji did push-ups Baki style. That night, during a horror movie-worthy thunderstorm, the girls discussed whether Michiru was an alien. Sachi claimed Michiru had been replaced by a shadow clone like in a horror flick. Makina agreed and added that under the silly act was Sukuna waiting to unleash hell. Perfect timing for lightning to strike and scare the crap out of Yumiko. Suddenly, screaming echoed through the dorm. Yuji and Yumiko investigated and found Michiru wandering around with weird wrappers in her hair like she'd just lost a fight with a vending machine. Sachi calmly explained Michiru was doing interpretive dance while secreting liquid. Turns out, Michiru was bleaching her hair, so yes, her dance was a battle against regrowth. The next afternoon, Makina asked whether men and women could be just friends, triggering a full dorm-wide debate. Michiru, confused as ever, left her bag with Sachi and wandered off. Yuji found her later in pain, and again by the ocean. Her personality had completely changed, her eyes even turned green. She had a second personality like Seijuro Akashi, the serious and curious, green-eyed Michiru, who started asking deep questions about life, love, and lips massages. And then she practiced it with Yuji, right on the lips, for science apparently. Afterward, she got back to her usual self and then promptly wiped her hand in dog poop. Classic. The next day, Michiru claimed she was Yuki Tsukumo and told Yumiko to fight her. Yumiko, unimpressed, pulled a box cutter like this was West Side Story. Michiru dodged and celebrated like she just won Olympic gold, angering Yumiko enough to flick her forehead like a tsunade. Later, Yuji confronted Michiru about their lips-to-lips massage. She didn't know what osculate meant. She thought he was talking about something Samurai Jack would do, then claimed she did, then ran away when Yuji tried to prove it. Later, Michiru tried to find Kitty Meow, or now Meow Mel, a name born from a chaotic mix of her and Yuji's imagination. She wanted to apologize to the cat for being cold. That's when things got real. Yuji trailed and told Michiru to head back without him and he would catch up. He saw a trail of blood. Meow Mel was injured and dying. Michiru found him and broke down in tears. Yuji flagged a taxi and he and Michiru rushed to the vet, credits rolling. She tried to feed Meow Mel a biscuit, but he coughed blood and died in her arms. Michiru sobbed, devastated as her beloved cat passed away, leaving a paw-shaped hole in her heart. One day, Yuji entered Michiru's room only to find her passed out on the floor next to a pile of pills. In a moment of heroic detective work, he tried one and immediately spit it out. Turns out, Michiru had tried to drug herself. Yuji rushed her to the nurse's office, where Chizuru casually stated that the etizolum, which were the drugs she took, wouldn't kill her. Meanwhile, Michiru, unconscious, drifted in sorrowful thoughts of Meow Mel, her beloved cat. The next morning, Yuji saw Makihiro and asked if she was all right. Michiru, now sporting mysterious green eyes, was fine and lively. Sachi popped in, fully dressed in Maid Extreme Edition, and asked if Michiru was back in full tsundere mode. Michiru confirmed, like a Pokemon that only evolves into sass. Makina suddenly burst in with one mission, to force Yuji into a bizarre game of shadow tag, where she tagged her own shadow like it owed her money. Later, on the rooftop, Yuji confronted Green Eyes Eyes Michiru, asking if she was the other Michiru and if so, where was the real one. Green Eyes Michiru revealed that real Michiru had given up, falling into a metaphorical abyss of sadness. She even called Yuji-kun, which shocked him more than the dual personality itself. Back in the dorm, Sachi brought Yuji a locked box Michiru had given her with strict no-take-backsies instructions. Sachi briefly considered opening it with a chainsaw, but decided to let Yuji handle it instead. Inside, he found Michiru's exchange journal, a written conversation between her two personalities. Yes, Michiru had been literally writing to herself. Things were getting deeper than a philosophy major's thesis. Yuji returned the journal to Green Eyes Michiru and suggested a comeback for Real Michiru. She refused, so in classic tough love fashion, Yuji, demanding to know how blue-eyed truly felt, popped a pill into her mouth, made her swallow it, and pinned her on the bed. Blue-eyed Michiru was back, but instead of gratitude, she declared she wanted to die so she'd never lose anyone again. Most people respond to grief with ice cream. Not Michiru. Yuji honored her melodramatic wish. He drugged her with a muscle relaxant and buried her alive in a coffin Batman style. Inside the casket, Michiru had entered the avatar state and had a spiritual roller coaster, a flashback of her abusive piano lessons, her friendship with another girl who later took herself to the afterlife, and her own heart condition. Her heart was literally replaced with that girl's during surgery, which explained the whole split personality thing. As she hallucinated inside the coffin, she had a supernatural encounter with the ghost of Meow Mel, because even cat spirits get involved in psychological trauma now, and the spirit of her lost friend who tried to pull her into the afterlife.
それが無理なら、このままずっと暗い闇の中にいなさい。
But Michiru finally faced her grief, apologized, and decided she wanted to live. She emerged from the coffin completely soaked in trauma and probably dirt. She then found Yuji, who had waited 3 whole days like Jesus, beside her grave with 0 snacks. That's commitment. He carried her home, and when she asked what he'd do if she had really died, he coolly told her the medicine was just candy. Apparently, Yuji is also part troll. Back at the dorms, Michiru was slowly returning to her sassy, tsundere self. She even hugged Yuji, pretending she totally didn't almost die a few days ago. Later, Yuji took her to America to visit the family of the girl whose heart she now carried. At the doorstep, Green Eyes Michiru appeared for a final goodbye and thanked both Yuji and Michiru. Yuji reflected that while the other Michiru disappeared forever, she still popped up occasionally, mostly to act ridiculous. Back at the dorm, Green Eyes Michiru patted Sachi on the head and gave Yuji a wink. They were now coexisting just fine. Outside, she visited Meow Mel's grave and smiled warmly at Yuji. At the end of it all, she had found peace, acceptance, and the strength to go on, with or without vitamin C. In a flashback, schoolgirls gossiped about Yumiko, who was rumored to be the daughter of a mistress, raised away from her father's family, and only called back after her brother's death. Ida, one of the girls, tried to get close to her, but it was big mistake. Yumiko saw Mahito in Ida's presence and sliced her own hand with a box cutter, while she showed no emotions. Naturally, the other girls backed off, likely rethinking their approach to friendship. Later, JB informed Yumiko's father, Michiaki, head of the Sakaki family and CEO-level stubborn, that Yumiko's mental state was stable. Michiaki demanded she be brought back to take over the Tohin Railway Group, even suggesting Yuji should help convince her, code for "let my thugs attack her." JB was less than thrilled and prepared a backup plan. Meanwhile, in Mihama Academy's dorm, Yuji and the girls minus Yumiko were playing a board game. Sachi bought Michiru's railroad, and Michiru lost so badly you'd think she handed over her credit card. Yuji noticed Yumiko leaving and followed her, calling her Yumi, which nearly earned him a kick to the face. Yuji remembered JB's orders to play bodyguard and lose a fight to protect her. Instead, when 3 cannon fodders showed up, Yuji did not want an L in his record for getting the lose part of the mission and high-handedly took care of them all, like it was a martial arts drama. They hid under a railroad bridge, where Yumiko finally opened up. She revealed her sad past. Her father wanted a son, but got her. Her mother became sick and mentally unstable, and her grandparents treated her like a leftover side dish. After being told by her hospitalized mom that she should have been born a boy, Yumiko ran away crying, cut her hair, and faced years of abandonment. Her mom eventually died, her half-brother too, and her dad swooped in like a bad sequel, trying to mold her into an heir. Back at school, Yumiko's father was furious Yuji dared to protect her and demanded Chizuru expel him. When she refused, he threatened to shut the school down and ship Yumiko off to America because nothing says parental love like deportation. Yumiko overheard this and stormed off, understandably angry. Soon after, Michiaki and his men showed up at the dorm. The girls were shocked to learn he was Yumiko's dad. When his men tried to grab her, Yumiko pulled out a Glock like a G standing on business and fired a warning shot that probably made even the birds evacuate. She demanded a proper talk, not a kidnapping. As things escalated, Michiaki tried to approach her, and Yumiko shot him in the shoulder. When she ran out of bullets, like GTA character, she took out a grenade. Yes, a grenade she bought online because apparently Amazon Prime delivers everything. She declared their relationship beyond repair, pulled the pin, and collapsed in an explosion. Everyone thought Yumiko had died. Michiaki cried over her body like Luffy when Ace died. Chizuru fainted like a soap opera character. JB had him taken to the hospital. But surprise, Yumiko had faked her death with Yuji's help. The body was a decoy. Yuji was actually the one who had shot her father with a sniper, and Yumiko hid during the chaos. Later, she visited the fake grave, tearfully thanking her parents despite the pain, and said goodbye. On the rooftop, JB confirmed Yuji had disobeyed orders, but things eventually worked out. Yumiko rejoined the school, causing Chizuru to faint again upon seeing her alive. JB gave Yumiko her family registry, officially cutting ties with the Sakaki name. She was finally free. Yumiko asked Yuji who he really was. He claimed he was just a student. She didn't buy it. No one does when you're sniping executives and dodging goons like John Wick. Yuji complimented her, saying she'd changed and looked attractive now. Yumiko, smiling for once, felt genuinely happy. And no one got stabbed this time. One sunny morning, Sachi was outside the dormitory sweeping, committed to her chores as always, when Michiru burst out in a panic, shouting they'd be late. Sachi calmly reminded her it was Sunday and the campus was closed. Classic Michiru, alarm first, logic later. Realizing this, Michiru promptly went back inside to sleep off her embarrassment. Sachi sighed, noting how silly Michiru had become lately, and even Yumiko seemed more cheerful than usual. She knew it was Yuji's arrival that had transformed everyone like a walking, talking antidepressant with a mysterious past. Inside, Yuji and Amane were peacefully reading, one a book and the other a magazine, while Sachi stared at them like they were an exhibit in a library-themed zoo. She admired how everyone had changed since Yuji arrived and wondered if she could too. Just then, Makina dragged her off to watch TV, where they learned that some kids couldn't count to 100 in the bath. Shocked by this worldwide tragedy, Makina suggested they train themselves to count to 10,000 even in the tub. Sachi, with the enthusiasm of someone who didn't understand the challenge, agreed. Later that night, Sachi tried her best but passed out mid-count in the bath. Amane found her and, with Yuji and Makina's help, got her to bed. Makina felt terrible and cried like she'd just lost her favorite anime plush. While alone with the unconscious Sachi, Yuji heard her mutter "Yukun" in her sleep and was surprised. The next day, Sachi had recovered, much to everyone's relief. Yumiko wondered where Yuji had gone. Turns out, he was at a train station. Despite hating trains more than kids hate broccoli, he returned to an old neighborhood. There, he saw a boy and girl in a park, which triggered a memory of himself and Sachi long ago. Back at school, Michiru, stressed over tests, jokingly asked Sachi to get rid of them. Sachi, being the literal-minded, overly obedient girl she was, took it seriously. Amane bonked Michiru for the dumb suggestion, but Sachi accepted the mission like it was her life's calling. That night, Sachi locked herself in her room, muttering about being a good girl while planning the destruction of academic evaluations everywhere. Over the next days, she secretly gathered gasoline, tanks, dynamite. Basically, she was turning the school into a Bond villain's hideout. When the girls eventually found her in the classroom one late night as she was about to fulfill her mission, she mistakenly activated the bomb timer. Now in panic, she tried her best to get them out, but they were worried and confused about what was going on. The situation got tense when Michiru tripped and nearly revealed a dynamite stash. Sachi, with the mindset of Captain America, shielded the explosive with her body, expecting the worst as the timer hit 0, but nothing exploded. Yuji entered, casually admitting he had secretly tampered with the bombs. Together, they cleaned up and he reminded Sachi of their childhood bond. She finally told him the backstory of her happy childhood, her loneliness, her parents' tragic accident, and the trauma that led to her obsession with being a good girl. Yuji, touched, comforted her, saying that it's okay to be selfish sometimes and praised her for making it this far. Sachi cried and hugged him, finally finding peace. Yuji then detonated the dummy bombs outside, which turned out to be fireworks, a flashy way to erase the evidence and cap off the night. The girls watched from the dorm, assuming it was an oddly timed festival. The next day, Yuji took Sachi to her old family factory, where a birthday message from her parents waited. Her mother had written a note wishing for Sachi to always smile, explaining they named her Sachi because it meant happiness. Sachi cried tears of joy and thanked them for always being with her. Later, she visited her mother in the hospital. As she and Yuji walked home, she made one last request for a 1-minute hug. He gladly obliged. Yuji was stunned when he got an email from Makina promoting him from Oni-chan to Papa. Confused but intrigued, he showed her the message, and Makina eagerly insisted that she wanted him to be her father. That evening, Yuji announced his new paternal role to the other girls in the dormitory, only to be met with the same expression people give when they hear pineapple belongs on pizza, complete confusion. Yuji promised to protect Makina and raise her into a respectable woman. She hugged him, and then things got complicated. Later, he called JB with his big news, and her reaction was as baffled as everyone else's. But things turned serious when Yuji explained Makina had offered him 70 billion yen to become her father. Yes, billion, with a B. Turns out it was her entire lifetime allowance. The offer wasn't just cute, it was loaded, literally. JB did some digging and uncovered that the Irisu family was a powerhouse of politicians tangled in government and shady dealings. Makina's father, Masataka Irisu, was a Ministry of Defense accountant who tried to whistleblow some family secrets but died in an accident. Coincidence? Sure, and water isn't wet. Makina's kidnapping years ago left her mentally scarred and stripped of her heir status, handing the title to her younger sister, Sarina. When Yuji learned Makina even had a sister, he realized this situation was more gloomy than a dorm bathroom after curry night. While the girls planted apple tree saplings, Makina proudly wore one on her head, claiming she'd give Yuji apples from it one day. Yuji, now in full dad mode, laid out a summer boot camp plan, morning runs, homework, and combat training. Makina was less than thrilled. Her punches bounced off Yuji like marshmallows off a tank. Meanwhile, Yumiko caught wind of Yuji using her PC to buy a sniper rifle. Yuji started training Makina to shoot, but when Yumiko walked into the firing zone mid-practice, he scolded her like a dad whose kid just drew on the TV with permanent marker. Later, Amane left for a trip, and Makina embarrassingly shouted "Banzai" at the station like a one-girl parade. Back at the dorm, she asked if Yuji had a home. He said no, but planned to visit his master's grave. She insisted on tagging along. At his old cabin, he shared stories of Asako Kusakabe, the woman who raised him and turned him from a wimp like Mr. Satan to Majin Buu. They visited her grave and Makina thanked her for raising him. The next day, while grocery shopping, Makina spotted her sister Sarina, who apparently had aged into the intimidating boss lady look. Before Makina could say anything, Sarina's car exploded in a fiery blast, sending Makina flying like a low-budget action movie stunt double. Back at the dorm, Sachi told Yuji that Makina had been knocked out and was now recovering. Yumiko informed him that the explosion was actually an assassination attempt targeting Sarina. Yuji remembered the moment Makina offered him the check and his vow to protect her. When she woke up, he reassured her that Sarina survived and promised never to leave her side. Makina cried tears of joy, or maybe relief that he wasn't billing her for babysitting. Afterward, JB summoned Yuji to HQ. His codename was 9029, which sounds like a secret agent or a model of Roomba. JB introduced him to Kiara Farrell, her overzealous secretary, who tuned into a fangirl over Yuji like he was a K-pop idol. JB sent her away after Yuji commented on her peaches and they got into a quick banter about harassment and abuse of power, like an HR meeting gone off script. JB handed Yuji a new assassination mission. He opened the envelope and his face dropped faster than a Wi-Fi signal in a storm. His next target was Makina Irisu. In a flashback, Makina's father, brother, Masataka Irisu, was tragically gunned down by thugs who kindly informed him mid-murder that his wife had been playing him like a fiddle. Makina later woke up from this nightmare crying, from the pain of remembering her father's death. Meanwhile, at headquarters, JB's boss was not thrilled that Yuji had gone rogue and disobeyed a direct order. Kiara, the chipper secretary with a crush on Yuji and the subtlety of a fireworks display, reported that they had located him. The boss ordered a full sweep to find out where he'd hidden Makina. Under a bridge where all shady anime things happen, Yuji turned up like the Baba Yaga and casually beat up the search team like he was running a self-defense class. Flashback to earlier, JB had handed Yuji a job: assassinate Makina. Yuji looked at the folder like someone just told him his pet goldfish was his next dinner. Refusal meant arrest, so he pretended to comply. 20 hours earlier, Yuji decided to go full dad mode and protect Makina by taking her into hiding. The girls saw them off with gifts like the three wise men. Michiru gave her 2,000 yen, Amane packed a lunch, and Sachi handed over a plant with the emotional weight of a Hallmark movie. Before they left, they saw Yumiko dramatically standing on the rooftop like a Batman cameo. Later, Yuji asked JB why the Irisu family was hunting Makina harder than the Akatsuki hunting tail beast. JB revealed the family feared Makina since she knew too much and wasn't particularly shy about it. Yuji swore to protect Makina to the end. Makina, meanwhile, had curry-bred duties and deep trauma, so a pretty normal Tuesday. She and Yuji heard noises next door, and when she thought someone insulted them, Makina kicked the wall like an angry chihuahua in defense. HQ eavesdropped on everything, with Kiara proudly discovering their hideout. That night, men disguised as cleaning staff raided the building, but it was a trap. Yuji, who could compete with Light Yagami, was once again a step ahead. He had already rigged the apartment with gas, fireworks, pesticide. The place blew up like a blockbuster budget movie. While HQ's goons scrambled for evidence, Yuji and Makina escaped in style. Except Makina forgot her beloved apple sapling. Tragic. Yuji told her to let it go, because plants don't rank high on his rescue list. The next day, Kiara discovered the apple sapling clue. Meanwhile, Makina had gone back herself to retrieve it, because priorities. She was cornered by an enemy but pulled a tuna fish man bluff, and managed to choke the thug. But before she could walk away in slow motion, another baddie shot her. Yuji arrived just in time to beat the guy senseless and rushed her to the hospital, JB blocking the exit with a gun like a very tired babysitter. Yuji gave up. JB, instead of handing Makina over, she took her to the hospital. Meanwhile, Makina's charming mother, Kyoka, visited her daughter not to comfort her, but to check her organ viability because her sister was in critical condition due to the assassination attempt. You know, classic mom stuff. Later, Yuji disguised himself as a delivery man and rolled into Irisu HQ with a gun and a note that read, "Make a sound and you die." When Kyoka's assistant ignored the note, Yuji, who did not come play around, shot her after she made a sound. He then walked into Kyoka's office with all the emotion of Johann Liebert and shot her leg. As she begged for mercy, he shot her 3 more times, just to make sure. The next morning, the media reported the president of Iris Global had been assassinated by an unidentified man who, in fairness, wore a very obvious anime protagonist clothes. JB subtly helped cover it up, likely fueled by guilt, old friendship, or just being tired of paperwork. Makina recovered, saw her apple sapling, and was reunited with Yuji, who lived up to his ultimate dad promise. Kiara swooned, JB sighed, and the schoolgirls welcomed the duo back like it was a season finale. Michiru, of course, skipped the hugs and immediately demanded her 2,000 yen back. Priorities. After the explosive action and trauma, things almost returned to normal until JB pulled up to the school like an over-friendly Uber driver and dropped off Yuji. But before he got out, JB pecked him on the cheek. Yuji reacted like someone just handed him a live eel. And of course, Sachi just so happened to be standing nearby, witnessing the awkward smooch. Sachi, wide-eyed and panicking like she'd walked in on something unholy, immediately claimed she saw nothing. Yuji tried to explain it was just JB being JB. But Sachi, now in full cartoon mode, nervously said, "It's just two adults playing around," then panicked further and asked if she was about to be touched indecently just for seeing it. Yuji, visibly exhausted, sent her away like a teacher dealing with a particularly dramatic student. Back in his room, Yuji found Amane casually ironing his clothes. She gave him the classic anime housewife line, "Do you want dinner, a bath, or me?" Yuji, in peak survival mode, wisely chose the shower. Disappointed but persistent, Amane told him she'd fallen in love with him at first sight. Amane served dinner only to receive a conveniently timed email from Sachi. It had the picture of Yuji getting his cheek pecked by JB. Amane went from housewife to jealous girlfriend faster than Minato could teleport. Yuji explained it was harmless teasing, but Amane teased back, asking if he wanted her to be jealous. She then made a bold offer. She'd forgive him if his lips touched hers. Yuji, apparently done with everyone's nonsense, put his lips to work. Amane froze, then declared it was her first time. You'd think she'd lead with that before making demands. Yuji agreed to be her boyfriend, but with conditions that if he disappeared or died, she wasn't allowed to cry. Touched but still unsure, Amane asked if he actually loved her. Yuji said yes. Amane was so overjoyed, she giggled herself to the floor and trembled like a malfunctioning vending machine. When Yuji tried to help her up, he bopped her on the head for being dramatic. When asked what started her feelings, she said again, it was love at first sight. But then, things turned serious. Amane began to cry. She had just realized that the girl from her past and the one who saved her was Yuji Kazami, who also happened to be Yuji's sister. Yuji was stunned. Amane explained what had happened 6 years ago. On August 14th, during a summer training camp, 14 girls and a teacher boarded a minibus and then vanished to the Neverland Island. That incident became known as the Takizono Academy minibus disaster. Amane was the only one to come back alive. Feeling guilty, she handed Yuji a journal from that time, which he began reading. 6 years ago, on a winding road, the bus's tire blew out and it plummeted off a cliff into a forest. Miraculously, some survived. Amane woke up with someone beneath her, and that someone turned out to be Kazuki. They introduced themselves like it was summer camp, not a death trap, and began rescuing the injured. As they pulled others out of the bus, we were introduced to the unlucky cast of the Final Destination students like Tamaki, who looked like a purple bruise factory, Saya bleeding from the head, Mifuyu impaled, and more. The club president, Chiaki, took charge like a substitute gym teacher on a power trip. Kazuki suggested treating the injured and exploring the area, but Chiaki insisted everyone stay put and trust the forest would somehow email for help. With no signal, no escape route, and no experience, the group relied on Kazuki, who practically became the squad's field medic. She treated the girls one by one, even as her own arm turned out to be broken. Hardcore. Yoshihiko, the concussed advisor, finally woke up and learned they'd gone full lost. Chiaki remained in denial about their situation, but Kazuki had a plan to argue with Chiaki to keep her from making bad decisions. Meanwhile, things took a dark turn when Amane found that Tsukasa Shikanai hadn't survived. One down, many to go. Yoshihiko buried Tsukasa, while Chiaki had everyone set up tents like this was a mandatory Girl Scout retreat. That night, Kazuki chose to read a book while Amane stared at the stars, worrying what tomorrow would bring. It was only the first night of the disaster, and already things were spiraling. Tensions were high, food and water were low, and Kazuki, with a broken arm and a sharp mind, was the only one keeping things from falling apart. Amane tried to make sense of the girl who would later become her best friend and her boyfriend's sister. Amane woke up, stretched her arms, and noticed one critical thing: Kazuki was gone again. Apparently, Kazuki was a certified ninja on the side. While wandering, Amane passed Minori, who was throwing her phone into the air with a string attached. Trying to catch a signal, she said, dead serious. At this point, Amane wondered if they should try smoke signals or maybe just yell Siri, call the police, and hope for divine intervention. Determined not to get lost, Amane marked trees with X's. She found Kazuki emerging from a bush holding edible wild food like it was a Michelin star dish. When Amane asked if there was a way home, Kazuki gave her the most comforting answer ever: yes, but not right now, for all they could do was hope and be patient. Kazuki apologized for going off alone and promised to stay close. Meanwhile, the girls still couldn't get a signal even after attaching the phone to a kite. At that point, they might as well have tied it to a squirrel and prayed. Back at the tents, Kazuki stitched up Mifuyu's abdominal wound like she was performing field surgery in Grey's Anatomy, Wilderness Edition. Amane changed Tamaki's towel, earning her a sweet thank you proof that even in the wild, hygiene wins hearts. Later, while collecting water, Amane suggested teamwork. Kazuki, ever the lone wolf with a PhD in I Walk Alone, declined. When Kazuki asked why Amane stuck with her, Amane said it was because she liked the most.
和樹のことが一番好きだからだよ。
Kazuki blushed as Amane hugged her and accidentally knocked her into the river. They heard a helicopter and the girls at camp did their best castaway impression and screamed for help. Amane had the bright idea to honk the bus horn, which achieved absolutely nothing. The helicopter flew away. 3 more girls had died and the heat was doing its job of making everyone regret being born. Yoshihiko buried the bodies while the rest tried to not puke. Picking flowers, Amane asked Kazuki if she had a brother. Kazuki admitted she did and loved him dearly. Amane broke down. Kazuki comforted her, whispering promises that they'd go home, so sweet yet so doomed. They rationed food, meaning we're all starving, but let's pretend we're in control. Even Minori started panicking, and that girl was literally throwing phones into the sky yesterday. Ritsu lost a carrot. 1 single carrot. This was a national emergency. She started spiraling harder than a telenovela character. Kazuki, channeling her inner Soma Yukihira, chopped up the other carrots to make it look like they had 1 more. Ritsu's mind was blown. Kazuki, humble as ever, probably wanted to add and a part-time magician. Chiaki lost it when Tamaki refused food. Kazuki snapped back, and Chiaki stormed off like a drama queen without a stage. Kazuki asked Amane for medicinal plants, as casual as asking for herbs. Later, Kazuki discovered why Tamaki wouldn't move. She had wet herself. Kazuki was surprisingly gentle about it. Amane left the tent feeling awkward, only for Kazuki to jump her by sucking a leech bite off her neck. It looked like a vampire cosplay gone wrong. While hiking, Kazuki revealed Yoshihiko was planning to leave. "Y'all stay here. I'll totally be back with help." But Kazuki reassured Amane and confessed her love, leaving Amane stunned like she got proposed to in the middle of a bear attack. Yoshihiko left, taking half the food, because why not double your odds of survival and get the group to hate you? Chiaki melted down again, and Kazuki led a food hunting party because sitting around waiting for Godot or ramen wasn't working. Rain again. Amane ate snails with all the enthusiasm of a kid eating Brussels sprouts. Kazuki promised porridge, and somehow that made it okay. Meanwhile, Mifuyu had maggots in her wound. Yes, maggots. Just when you thought things couldn't get grosser. Tamaki admitted she wanted to die, but Amane cleaned her up and gave her some much-needed hope. More rain. Haruna cracked and started singing like a Disney character having a breakdown. Saya shut her up. Everyone was starving. Megumi's dog Alioni was sick, and she was feeding him instead of herself. That dog had a better support system than some people. Amane ate a bug and immediately regretted all her life choices. Sunshine. But also, tragedy, Alione died. Then came the hard question to eat or not to eat the dog. Kazuki, ever the optimist, voted eat. Everyone else tried not to cry or throw up. Chiaki shockingly agreed. After a traumatizing game of rock, paper, scissors, Ritsu won the right to butcher Alione. She refused. Kazuki did the dirty work. Dog barbecue night commenced. Everyone cried into their dog meat stew. Megumi, broken-hearted, probably dreamed of pet ghosts. Amane vowed never to forget the day they crossed the final line. On the 13th day in the valley, Megumi collapsed after eating flower buds, proving once and for all that floral cuisine doesn't make a full meal. Haruna spiraled further into delirium from vitamin deficiency and had started conversing with trees. Mifuyu showed signs of blood poisoning, and Tamaki had become completely unresponsive, officially promoted to a decorative log. Amane reached her breaking point, but Kazuki, somehow still functioning as team captain of morale, told her to hang in there. Apparently, it was too early to die, which was really saying something given the circumstances. The hunger had reached feral raccoon levels. Kazuki tried to lighten the mood by revealing her brother's name, Yuji Kazami, and promised to introduce Amane to him if they survived. You know, some girls bond over lunch. These two bonded over death and cannibalism. Just then, Yoshihiko reappeared, laughing like a lunatic. Unfortunately, he brought 0 supplies and 100% disturbing energy. Amane realized he hadn't found help at all, just madness. Later that day, Hiruka died. Yoshihiko carried her off to be buried, and Amane, despite everything, wept for the vile woman she had once detested. Tragedy really puts petty grudges into perspective. Mifuyu died from sepsis, and Megumi, unable to go on, missed her friends so much that she took herself to the afterlife. Tragic, yet somehow the most peaceful way out anyone had managed. While Yoshihiko was off on another dead body delivery run, Saya, now mentally checked out, began eating the maggots from her own wounds. 5-star dining at Rock Bottom Inn. Minori and Saya, losing all sanity, argued over who should die first. Chiaki tried to boost morale with food, claiming Yoshihiko caught a deer. Most of the girls ate it, starving and hopeful. However, what Kazuki gave Amane wasn't Bambi on the grill, but someone a little more recently deceased. That night, Kazuki woke Amane. They followed Chiaki and Yoshihiko into the forest and discovered the horrifying truth. Yoshihiko was having busy inside with Chiaki, right next to Megumi's corpse. Turns out, the deer meat had 5 toes. Amane screamed and fell, alerting the necro chefs. Chiaki, now full Disney villain, ordered Yoshihiko to kill them. The girls fled. Kazuki whacked Yoshihiko with a bag either full of supplies or just spite, and he fell, presumably dead. Again, no one bothered to check. Who has time? They ran into Minori, who was too far gone to help. Saya was also roaming nearby, probably looking for another maggot buffet. While running, Amane tripped and tried to end it all with a knife, but Kazuki stopped her. Heroic to the end, Kazuki insisted Amane escape alone, handing her food and a map to safety. As the feral former classmates approached, Kazuki told her to run and never look back. Amane obeyed, but was racked with guilt, convinced she'd left Kazuki to die. 4 days later, Amane woke, still clutching Kazuki's untouched sweets like they were sacred relics. Hair falling out, strength nearly gone, she hallucinated her lost classmates before collapsing. Just as despair peaked, she saw a car through the trees. Civilization, hope, cabbage. She stumbled toward the nearest crop, weeping and laughing as she stuffed raw cabbage into her mouth, like a woman who had just escaped a vegetarian apocalypse. Amane returned to the academy as the sole survivor, but the reception was underwhelming. Most people were disappointed she lived, which was honestly a pretty rough Yelp review to get from your classmates. That night, she dreamed of the dead and decided she deserved punishment. Conveniently, she found the perfect man for the job, Yuji Kazami. She confessed the whole ordeal, admitted she only lived because of Kazuki's sacrifice, and begged Yuji to kill her. Instead, Yuji bonked her on the head emotionally, told her to stop apologizing, and delivered his punishment, live with me forever. But Amane agreed, crying tears of catharsis and possible heat stroke. Yuji, still curious about Kazuki, asked if she truly died. Amane wasn't sure, but something in the way Yuji spoke reminded her of Kazuki. It made her wonder, had whether Kazuki really died or had she survived, possibly guiding Yuji from the shadows. Or maybe the trauma was just making everyone sound wise and mysterious. Determined to confront her fear, Amane decided to return to Kazuki's grave. With Yuji in tow, they stopped by a shop where she bought flowers and incense. But of course, nothing is ever simple. A man named Sakashita approached them out of nowhere. He claimed to be Amane's biggest fan, which is always a great sign when you're trying to emotionally process cannibalism and mass death. He said he was once a successful IT executive who'd lost his purpose. Apparently, his purpose was being a creepy side character in someone else's trauma recovery arc. Yuji and Amane continued their journey to the forest, ready to visit Kazuki's grave one last time. Whether it was for closure, peace, or to ensure no one else was being served as venison again, they weren't sure. Yuji and Amane trekked through the forest using Kazuki's old map. They stopped at a rock marked with an ex-classic pirate vibes, and Yuji dug up a container like it was buried treasure. Inside were a knife and a letter from Kazuki. The note revealed that the group died due to a toxic soup and a skin disease that Tamaki developed, basically one of the worst dinner party in recorded history. Tamaki, ironically, might have saved Amane by getting her to skip the soup. Kazuki's final was request that Amane take good care of Yuji. Talk about passing the torch. At the memorial site, Amane spotted a detour sign revealing that they could have reached the highway in just 3 hours if they'd gone the other way. Whoops, she prayed for her lost friends, choosing gratitude over guilt. Then Yuji noticed a familiar name, Chiaki Sakashita, on the memorial, making him think of the strange man, Sakashita, who had recently introduced himself as Amane's biggest fan. Suddenly, Amane got a call from Makina, but the voice on the line belonged to Keiji Sakashita, Chiaki's father, who announced he'd kidnapped her friends and was holding them hostage with a shotgun. Talk about a hard left turn from Welcome Back to Die Survivor. In flashback, before Amane received the phone call, Keiji stormed into the girl's dorm, asking where Amane was. Makina, trying to protect her, said she was out with Yuji. Keiji responded by whipping out a shotgun because that's how normal people handle grief. He held them hostage, demanded their phones, and even fired a warning shot. In response, Sachi left her phone secretly on so Yuji could listen in. Sachi deserves a raise. Meanwhile, Yuji called JB and told her not to get the police involved because explaining Yumiko's back from the dead status would be complicated. Yuji devised a plan so insane it just might work. He planned lure Keiji to the boys' bathroom, aim from a lighthouse miles away, and snipe him using the infamous second urinal shot. Yes, really. This is apparently a sniper legend up there with curving the bullet from Wanted. Makina, the designated Marine, received Morse code instructions to destroy the correct urinal to trigger Yuji's shot. She requested a bathroom break, stealth mission style, and Michiru tagged along because girls never go to the bathroom alone, even during hostage crises. After some chaos, Michiru headbutted the urinal so hard it shattered. She passed out. But hey, mission accomplished. With the urinal gone, Yuji got into position. Keiji forced Amane into the school and then started ranting about how she killed his daughter. He gave her a twisted ultimatum: her life or her friends. Amane nobly chose herself, but instead of shooting her, Keiji hit her and dragged her to the bathroom for a good time. As Keiji entered sniper range and began to relieve himself, yes, mid-P, Yuji took the shot. Bullseye right in the shoulder. Keiji collapsed, Amane broke free, and the cavalry JB's team stormed in like action heroes at the climax of a movie. The girls were freed, Michiru regained consciousness and realized she'd wet herself, and Keiji was arrested. Later, Amane apologized to her friends, but they reassured her. Even if Michiru forgot who saved them, the gang was safe and grateful. Yuji got a salute from the principal, who he finally called Principal, and the team lived happily ever after, or at least until the next disaster. 1 year later, in true post-credits scene fashion, chaos resumed. Near Yonaguni Island, a high-speed boat chase unfolded. 2 mystery men were on the run from the police, and one of them fired a rocket launcher like it was just another Tuesday, while the other snacked on chocolate from a music box. Thank you coming with us to the finish line of this wonderful anime-filled action and twisted fates. Please do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and to turn on the notification bell. Also like our videos and leave a comment below them. Keep dreaming and keep discovering new parts of yourself.